right, depending on your time zone, today or tonight, we're going to be covering the webtoon called The Secret Formula. This is another one of those depressing ones, so buckle up. October is still far from over, so keep requesting horror stuff for me to cover. Now, before we get started, ladies and gentlemen, you need to know that this is a story that takes place right after Plankton has finally won. This means out of all of the failed attempts of Plankton trying to get the Krabby Patty formula, he's finally successfully infiltrated the Krusty Krab. And as he enters Krabs' room, there it is, the Krabby Patty formula. The recipe listing off the ingredients to the world's famous Krabby Patty. So as Plankton's finally uncovering the secret, you would think that he would be happy, but something's wrong. And even tears start coming out of Plankton's eyes. And as we look at the formula, the ingredients are anchovies, Gary's slime, crab meat, chum, plankton, sponge, and tuna. These are all creatures of the sea that live amongst plankton, so of course, he's not handling this too well. And as he's mourning, a mysterious claw creeps up from behind him, making Plankton scream at the top of his lungs, because there in the shadows creeps a monster named Krabs. As you can see, this AU plays off the long perpetuated theory about Krabs putting creatures into his Krabby Patties. Because not only is there no livestock like cows and chicken in the Bikini Bottom, but that meat has to be coming from somewhere. And even when Mr. Krabs is eating a Krabby Patty, he even says, so that's what I taste like. So this AU's off to an interesting start, and I can't wait to see how it ends. In the next part, we see that Plankton luckily escapes the Krusty Krab, with Krabs sitting outside. And he seems to be yelling Plankton's name, which lets us know whatever's going on with him, he still has a consciousness, which is pretty sad. But of course, as he's yelling, Plankton still continues running in fear. And eventually, he ends up at Spongebob's neighborhood, and he's most likely there to tell him what happened, but notices that his door's opened from a distance. So worried, he runs over to his house yelling, "SpongeBob?" And as he enters the house, he says, "No, SpongeBob?" Then whatever Plankton sees, it makes him completely lose it. He starts bawling out, crying, screaming, saying, "Why? Oh God, why?" And then we see where the blood trail is coming from. Gary, SpongeBob's best friend and pet. Sadly, Gary's gone, and judging by SpongeBob's shoe being left on the scene, it looks like his shell was bashed in. And we don't get a clue or know where SpongeBob is, especially because in the next part, it cuts to a remote shelter that Plankton owns. And that's when he starts talking to his computer wife Karen, telling her basically he doesn't want to do this anymore and says that Krabs already got SpongeBob. And his computer wife Karen says, "I'm sorry Sheldon, but you can't just let Krabs get away with this. He might have access to all the TVs in the Bikini Bottom, but so do I. If we play this right, we can find SpongeBob." And as Plankton asks, but how, she basically tells him that out of all the hundreds of cameras in the Bikini Bottom, there's only one location that has been turned off, and it's in an underground place in Rock Bottom. If there's one place Krabs would abduct someone, it would be there. And now that Plankton knows his mission, she tells him that there's a bracelet beside him and they can use that to communicate with each other while he's down there. On top of that, she is also relying on him to use that bracelet to restore power to that camera. And that's when Plankton asks her, "You're not letting me go alone, are you?" "Unfortunately, if you want power restored, but it's the only way we know if SpongeBob's there. We don't know what happened to him. We may have very little time." And then she tells him to take this tablet, it'll show you if SpongeBob's actually in there once the power is restored. Something seems to be very off with Plankton because he just seems very sadder than usual. And Karen tells him, "Sheldon, you must go now, I'll guide you there, SpongeBob needs you." So Plankton takes the bus to Rock Bottom, and as you can tell, things are about to get much darker. And as the bus comes to a stop, he gets out and Karen begins guiding him, saying, "4 blocks straight, and then your destination is going to be on the left." And as Plankton walks alone down the street in the dark abyss, he runs into a horrifying looking creature, stuff you don't really see in the normal Bikini Bottom, but they're completely harmless. And that's when Karen gets on the mic and says, "Almost there, the building is on your left." And then he sees it. "I think I see the circuit breaker, Karen." And when she opens it, she says, "Okay, Sheldon, that empty slot, you're gonna need to insert me into there." And then he says, "I guess this is it," and breaks her off the wrist, and once before she goes in there, she says, "You'll be alright, do it now, get the tablet ready." And And that's when he says, "Don't let me down, Karen. Please." And as he looks at the camera, he sees something's wrong and says, "SpongeBob?" Sooner or later, Plankton enters the building and he keeps saying SpongeBob's name but is not getting a response. And then he starts to panic as he realizes this is bad, and he says, "I'll get you out of here, SpongeBob. Where's the light?" And he finds the light, and SpongeBob says out of nowhere, "Don't, please." But I guess he didn't hear this because Plankton still goes on to turn on the light, and then while he's doing this, SpongeBob's yelling out, "Wait, please, no." And when he turns it on, you won't believe what Plankton sees. SpongeBob's outer layer almost has been fully skinned off, like a cheese grinder had just hit him. All you can think to yourself is, what the barnacles happened to SpongeBob? Oh, Neptune, why? Why, Plankton? And as Plankton sits there crying, he asks, "What did he do to you, SpongeBob?" And SpongeBob, who can barely speak, basically says, "It doesn't matter. Krabs will just keep harvesting my sponge as long as I'm breathing. Oh, Neptune, it hurts so much." And as Plankton stands there speechless, SpongeBob says to him, "I'm sorry, Plankton. You never were the bad guy. Not you. I should have never listened to Krabs. I never meant to harm you, Plankton. I never meant to hurt anyone in the Bikini Bottom. I promise." And this makes Plankton just lose it. And SpongeBob even starts crying and just asks Plankton just this one time if he could do something really nice for him, which is pulling a switch to end the suffering. "Please, Plankton, put an end to my pain and set me free. I'm begging you, please." And that's when Plankton slowly turns around to look at the lever named the kill switch. That's when Plankton starts to stand there staring at it for a long time and is starting to really hesitate because he can't do it. And SpongeBob, who wants his suffering to end immediately, is just saying, "I'm sorry, Plankton, it shouldn't be you, but you can be my friend for just one moment, right? Please help me just this once, save me and pull the switch." But Plankton just begins to get very emotional and turns around looking at SpongeBob, who says, "It's okay." And he says to SpongeBob, "I can't." And then SpongeBob's like, "Yes, you can. Just take a deep breath and save me." And then he takes a deep breath and says, "I'm sorry," and jumps for the lever, hitting it, closing his eyes. And as SpongeBob sits there yelling in agony, he covers his ears and doesn't turn around until the screaming's done. And now that it's silent and he's alone, he turns around to see SpongeBob's body completely scorched, and he's gone. And this is when things start to get crazy, because before he can even leave, the door shuts on him completely and he's trapped inside. And he starts to scream out for someone to help and let him out, but it doesn't work. And that's when he hears Krabs on the intercom, who's surprisingly laughing and saying, "Hello, Plankton." That's when Plankton says, "You monster." But Krabs is having a blast. He's laughing and says, "Come on, Plankton. All these years thinking the formula would salvage your business? No, it was never about the Krusty Krab. It was about protecting the little fish brains of the Bikini Bottom." And Plankton just rips him a new one. "You vile, worthless crab, scraping every penny to fill that pathetic void inside that shell? I saw what's in that formula. You stole everything from me, you bastard." And Krabs says, "You found me formula? But at what cost? The price is worth more than every penny I've ever made, and now you're going to have to pay." "I made chum. You're not getting away with this." But Krabs says, "Of course I am, and you're the monster for killing SpongeBob." "You killed SpongeBob, you worthless crab." "I never pulled the kill switch, Plankton." And he starts to break down crying. And Krabs leaves him with the final message saying, "I shall continue my work, I shall continue pleasing my customers, and the riches of the Krusty Krab shall be bountiful, something you have yet to understand." And he basically says, "Get yourself comfortable because you're not getting past these reinforced steel walls. Make yourself at home and rot like me boy SpongeBob. Goodbye, Plankton." And Plankton sits there in the dark to rot with SpongeBob. Karen has broken in, and it had to be sometime because Plankton's laying on the ground and he looks completely on 1 HP. And as she's trying to wake him up, she notices SpongeBob's body and looks back at him, and she's like, "I'm here, Sheldon," when she sees him awake and says, "I'm so sorry. It took so long. Please forgive me. What happened?" And that's when she starts yelling and crying, saying, I'm gonna get you out of here. But Plankton tells her the toxins leaked out of SpongeBob's corpse that Krabs put inside of him, and they got in his limbs, and he can't really move. And she's like, come on, you gotta stay with me. But he says, I'm sorry for always causing you trouble. The chum bucket, I just wanted to make us happy. And she basically tells him, Sheldon, please don't. I'm gonna get you out of here. Just stay with me. In the next part, we're brought back to the shelter with Karen rushing through the doors with Plankton in her hands. And as she's begging Plankton to stay with her, she looks at this machine and says, I hope this works. And when she lays him on this machine, it starts making some very weird noises, and she starts to monologue to herself saying, you gave me life, Sheldon, all those years ago. Please let me give you yours. Please, Sheldon, please work. Eventually, Plankton actually wakes up and survives, and Karen's like, oh, you're awake. And as you can see, she's amputated his limbs, giving him robot arms and legs. And before he can panic, she reassures to him that he is safe, and she apologizes, saying, please understand that this was the best I could do. I thought I was going to lose you, Sheldon. And then it's revealed that Plankton doesn't really remember much, and she just tells him that everything's gonna be okay, I saved your life, and I hope you can understand. And he just says, yes, thank you, darling. Where is Krabs now? And then she says, I just looked at the TV and he's at the Krusty Krab, and he's going to be soon closing up shop for the day. Then I shall end it now while I have the strength. I shall finally end what I started. But Sheldon, I shall not let another innocent soul be tortured by Krabs. All our lives, Karen, we've raged by the pursuit of evil. It's now time to turn our wrath towards the worst of all evil, to bring the Bikini Bottom justice. And that's when Karen says, then what do you suggest, Sheldon? And he just says, now Krabs pays his dues. He will pay by the wrath of Neptune. I shall make him repent. For SpongeBob. Later in the next part, we see that Plankton is finally ready to leave and basically says that he's been playing by Krabs' rules, and this time it's time to break those rules. And Karen is basically worried that this is not going to go well, so she says, Plankton, I don't want anything to happen to you, to us. But Plankton ignores all of that, only focused on getting his revenge on Mr. Krabs, saying, I'll show him how to play fair. And while his door is opening to his biggest weapon, smoke leaves his hidden room, and he says to himself, if this is what it comes down to, then so be it. And then we see Krabs just finishing up shutting down and locking up the Krusty Krab, with Plankton saying, let it be the last time Krabs walks through those forsaken doors. Let it be the last time he sees night and day, for I shall be the soldier of Neptune, and rage with his vengeance. The next day, before Mr. Krabs opens up his shop, he comes out of his office and says, another beautiful day, and then instantly gets grabbed by the back and thrown back into his office. And as he sees Plankton looking at him through the mech, he yells out, no, stop! Gets his arms completely ripped off. Then he gets thrown outside into the lobby with blood splattering all over the ground from his shell. And then he starts laughing. It's hilarious. It took you this long. That's when Plankton cuts him off, saying you're gonna pay for SpongeBob's suffering and all the things you've done. And Mr. Krabs clearly doesn't care after he says, you'll never get him back. Ever. It is already over, Sheldon. Plankton, do what you want. But the game's over. I've made my fortune, and the unsufferable brat SpongeBob is gone. And that's when Plankton says, condemn me as much as you wish. Nothing will ever replace the greedy brute behind your worthless shell. And that must have hit her nerve, because Krabs starts going off. Curse you, Plankton. I was never the envious, low-life insect that you are. You can only dream of this success, and that'll haunt you forever. Plankton still doesn't care and says none of that matters. It all ends tonight. Krabs is still mad, saying, You're a nobody. You've never been anything. Rot in hell, you insect. And in his final words to Krabs, Plankton says, I am a nobody, but Spongebob wasn't. Chum on this, you crustaceous cheapskate. Plankton finally put an end to the monster Eugene Krabs, saying, "Goodbye, Eugene." And after that, everything goes dark, and in the next part, it cuts to the news. Breaking news! The Krusty Krab founder Eugene Krabs has been found dead inside of his own restaurant. This also tragically follows in development with SpongeBob SquarePants' disappearance, whose remains, unfortunately, have been found. This is not how we wanted the search to end, but sadly, after 6 grueling weeks, the search has ended here. Squidward is watching the news and he's completely astonished with them saying, SquarePants remains have been uncovered long decomposed within a storage facility in Rock Bottom, roughly 26 miles from his home in the Bikini Bottom, and also requested by SquarePants' mother and father by whom he was survived. We will currently end the details here. Authorities have turned to Krabs' longtime competitor Sheldon Plankton of the Chum Bucket for clues as to the correlation between both SquarePants and Krabs' deaths. However, all of Plankton's whereabouts have gone suspiciously unknown. Some believe this may have been premeditated, as tension between Krabs and Plankton have persisted for decades, yet no final verdict has been ruled. As Plankton stares at the screen, Plankton's wife Karen comes up behind him saying, I've leaked all of the recorded footage. Soon, the whole world will see as you and I saw. They can only frame you for so long before Krabs is forever defamed as a monster. And as Plankton leaves wherever he's hiding at, the AU ends off like this, with Karen saying, don't worry, Sheldon. You may not be the hero now, but the Bikini Bottom will know in time I've done my part. I think. Don't let those who matter know. We'll just have to lay low until then. You can rest now, Sheldon. And as Plankton looks into the distance, out of nowhere he sees SpongeBob and Gary sitting there. And they turn around and look at him and fade away. And a tear drops from his eyes. Don't miss out on the next videos. Subscribe, as it only takes a second. I appreciate every single one of you guys, and thank you for the support. We'll see you tomorrow on the next video. Peace.